these leagues are accruing more and more super high net worth individuals buying into them. That's partially a function of the valuations of these teams getting higher and higher, and only a certain amount of people can afford them. But what that has created is a colossal inequality between the families that have maybe bought into these leagues decades ago, you know, early in the 20th century in some cases, to the people who are buying in today. No one is saying that if you're worth, a few $100 million that you're not doing so well. But when you compare that with Steve Ballmer, who today is worth over $150 billion, the amount of spending that we are talking about with this aspiration scandal, $48 million in alleged side payments to Kawhi Leonard, that is pennies in his couch cushion compared to, what some of the, what shall we say, like establishment owners who have owned teams in this league for a long time can spend.
Yeah, and I think it's reflective kind of where pro sports is today. It's not just us counting every owner's money, right? The leagues are doing it too in their own ways. It's why we've seen the changes that we have in baseball recently. It's
Mhm.
why we've seen the changes that we have in the NBA recently. And it's why the NFL has always strived for a parity for all kind of model, right? They are the most socialist of leagues among these uber capitalists. And I think it's fascinating that this issue is getting worse and the leagues keep trying to look for new ways to go about it. If you look at baseball for a second, the richest owner in baseball, I believe, if I remember my Forbes rankings correctly, is Steve Cohen.
Mm.
Uh, and baseball is trying to legislate Steve Cohen and his billions of dollars into mediocrity as much as they can. They have the Steve Cohen tax. There's all this fear mongering now about a hard cap in the next CBA, right? And again, this is to limit people like Steve Cohen, and it's something that every league is trying to figure out. The NBA obviously did it in its last CBA by putting in the second apron. And who was that trying to limit? It's a little guy in Los Angeles named Steve Ballmer. I was curious, as someone who's looked into this, what do you think the effects of this, again, we're going to call this in a semi-serious way, wealth inequality. Like, what has that meant for pro sports in actuality? Like, how have we seen that actually affect basketball, the NBA, the NFL, baseball, like whatever sport you want to choose, whatever example you want to give?
I think it's a good question, and maybe to answer it, we have to pan out a little bit and say, like, why is this happening? Why are there these attempted constraints around the ultra wealthy buying into these leagues? To answer that, you have to ask another question, which is, why are these ultra wealthy people buying into the leagues in the first place? And that is somewhat a function of leagues needing super, super wealthy people to buy in.